Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, let's just dive right in today by totally shattering a major preconception you probably have about your own body. Because, when we talk about mental health, our mood, our overall well being, we almost exclusively look up here at our heads. But today, we're exploring the gut brain connection. We're going to see how the microscopic ecosystem living inside your digestive tract might actually be the one pulling the strings on exactly how you think and feel. And the absolute most crucial point to kick things off is this: 90%. Roughly 90% of your body's serotonin, yeah, the exact same neurotransmitter responsible for your mood, your cognition, your overall sense of well-being, is actually produced down in your gut, not your brain. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. The vast majority of your so-called happy chemical is synthesized in your gastrointestinal tract. That single fact, it literally demands a total paradigm shift in how we understand human emotion. So let's officially meet your second brain. We're talking about the enteric nervous system, and it is an absolute biological marvel. It basically functions as a semi-independent command center right there in your gut. It regulates digestion, blood flow, the whole shebang, all on its own. But here's the wild part. This second brain isn't just made of human cells. We are quite literally harboring trillions of microscopic co-pilots, bacteria, fungi, viruses, all coexisting in this delicate symbiosis with us. And they don't just sit there. They are active factories, chemical engineers producing essential biomolecules, regulating your digestion, your immunity, and incredibly, your mood. Which brings us to the biological superhighway. Because these two brains, they are talking constantly. And the main physical connection, the literal high-speed information superhighway transmitting signals back and forth, is the vagus nerve. Now, what's genuinely mind-blowing here is that about 80% of those nerve fibers are afferent. That's a fancy way of saying they carry information from the gut up to the brain. Your gut is literally dictating your emotional state based on what your microbes are up to. But it's not just a single physical wire. Information actually travels across 4 distinct lanes of communication, proving this is a complex, multi-lane system. First, you've got neural signaling through that vagus nerve we just mentioned. Then there's endocrine signaling, where the gut actually influences the HPA axis and stress hormones like cortisol. Third is immune interactions. This is where gut bacteria dictate inflammation levels via cytokines. And finally, you have metabolic signaling. Now, a huge part of that metabolic signaling lane involves something called SCFAs, or short-chain fatty acids. See, when you eat dietary fiber, your body actually can't digest it alone. Your gut bacteria have to step in, ferment that fiber, and they produce these SCFAs, like butyrate. And these are definitely not just waste products. They are powerful metabolic messengers. They can actually traverse the blood-brain barrier to alter brain activity, lower neuroinflammation, and literally protect your neurons.
But what about dysbiosis in mental health?
Like, what actually happens when there's a massive traffic jam on this superhighway? Well, you get dysbiosis. The biological contrast between a healthy ecosystem and dysbiosis is stark, and it often results in what we call a leaky gut. Picture a healthy gut as having a strong fortress wall, high microbial diversity, an intact mucosal barrier. But with leaky gut, that wall is compromised. Increased intestinal permeability allows harmful toxins, things like LPS from bad bacteria, to just escape the gut and enter your bloodstream. And boom, this immediately triggers a systemic immune response, elevating pro-inflammatory cytokines like IL-6. And trust me, the mental health fallout from this is severe. It goes way beyond a stomachache. This gut-borne inflammation isn't just physical. It crosses over and becomes neuroinflammation. It directly alters neurotransmitter availability, meaning your brain literally cannot synthesize serotonin and dopamine correctly. It completely hyperactivates your stress response. And the research firmly links this gut dysbiosis to the very real biology of severe mood disorders. We're talking anxiety, depression, and even bipolar disorder. Now, we do have to balance some nuance here. There's a great insight from Oxford University research that captures this perfectly, noting the microbiome may act as a biological barometer. Scientists are still untangling what is strictly causal versus what's correlative, because sometimes chronic psychological stress originating in your brain can actually alter your gut permeability. It creates this vicious, self-reinforcing feedback loop. So a lot of the time, the gut simply reflects our broader biopsychosocial health, our diet, our stress levels, our environment. Moving on to the Alzheimer's connection. That nuance we just talked about, it shifts pretty dramatically when we look at severe neurodegenerative conditions. Professor Sandrine Thorett at King's College London led a landmark study where her team didn't just find a correlation. No, they successfully transferred Alzheimer's-like memory impairments into young, completely healthy animals. How? Simply by transplanting the gut microbiota from human Alzheimer's patients into them. The animals literally took on the cognitive deficits of the donors based solely on the bacteria they received. Truly incredible. And the specific mechanism they uncovered is decreased neurogenesis. Basically, the transplanted Alzheimer's microbiota directly impaired the growth of new nerve cells in the hippocampus, which is the memory center of the brain. This proves that dysbiosis can literally stop the brain from generating new memory cells. It is a terrifying yet completely illuminating piece of the biological puzzle. It shows exactly how much power these microbes hold over us. Let's shift gears to healing with psychobiotics, because there is profound hope here. If the gut can cause these issues, it can also act as the cure through this emerging field of psychobiotics. This is a revolutionary class of interventions specifically designed to interact with the gut-brain axis to improve mental health. It generally breaks down into 4 categories. You've got probiotics, which are the live beneficial microorganisms themselves. Prebiotics, the specialized indigestible fibers that act as fertilizer for the good bacteria. Synbiotics, which is a synergistic combo of the two. And finally, postbiotics. Those are the healthy byproducts like the SCFAs we talked about earlier that actually do the heavy lifting for anti-inflammatory work in the brain. Now, if you're sitting there wondering, okay, but does changing my diet actually do anything in the real world? Just consider this number, 575%. To show you how incredibly fast dietary interventions can work, one multi-arm study in healthy adults found a massive 575% increase in a specific beneficial mood-regulating bacteria strain. And they did this just by adding real-world coconut kefir, a fermented food, to their diet. Alongside that huge bacterial explosion, they saw significant reductions in intestinal inflammation, which, you guessed it, correlated with much better mood scores. So how do we actually put this into practice? Well, here are the actionable interventions for a better brain, drawn straight from the research. First up, consume high-fiber foods. You've got to fuel that essential SCFA production. Second, introduce fermented foods, like that coconut kefir we just mentioned, to bring those live beneficial microbes right into your system. Third, incorporate omega-3 fatty acids to actively reduce inflammation. Ultimately, you're trying to support the growth of hero strains like Bifidobacterium and Lactobacillus. By adopting these tangible dietary habits, you are actively lowering neuroinflammation, fixing that leaky gut, and giving your body the raw materials it needs to pump out more natural serotonin. I want to leave you with this final thought today. What message are you feeding your second brain? Because as the science overwhelmingly shows us now, the gut-brain connection is real, it is incredibly powerful, and it is largely in your hands. Every single time you eat, you aren't just fueling your physical body, you are quite literally writing the biological code for your mind. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I highly encourage you to think about those trillions of microscopic co-pilots the next time you sit down for a meal.